Honestly, I am super excited to be sharing this video with you guys. Mulholland Drive is one of my all-time favorite movies, and this is a script that has been in the works for over a year at this point now. But before I get into it, I do want to address some criticisms that often come with trying to analyze David Lynch films in a broader sense. Lynch is a very abstract filmmaker, and much of the appeal with his movies comes in their mystery and undefined nature. Mulholland Drive is definitely in contention for the most abstract and undefinable David Lynch film, so I completely understand not wanting to interfere with its legacy and status. But Lynch encourages us to be detectives at every turn. All of his films are, in their most base form, mysteries for the audience to solve. Obviously, I think my interpretations are valid, but yours might be completely different, and that's great. Lynch does encourage us to investigate his films, but part of the experience is that we have no definitive answers. It's always an open case, no matter how well anyone analyzes the work in question. So this is it, my big personal conclusion on Mulholland Drive. I hope you can all get something from it, and if not, I hope it encourages you to come up with your own interpretation, which I would love to hear in the comments. And now, without further ado, let's investigate Mulholland Drive. Mulholland Drive is a film about dreams. But what dreams specifically? Well, one type of dream in the film is the traditional kind. After all, much of the movie takes place in the sleeping mind of our main character, Diane. However, much of the film also revolves around another dream, the Hollywood dream. Diane has aspirations of being a successful movie star, and thus her life in Hollywood is at first a dream, and later a nightmare. We begin the film in the real world, seeing Diane win the Jitterbug dance competition, which will eventually propel her to seek a Hollywood career. Yet the scene is shot in such a way that suggests a dream. We're left to infer much of what is happening here with little to no explanation. We simply see figures dancing over a surreal backdrop while Diane smiles and is flanked by two older people, possibly her parents, possibly judges. The following shot of Diane's pillow seems to imply the scene to be a dream, yet we know that scene occurs in the real world because that elderly couple are cast as friends Diane made during a plane trip in her dream. So Diane is living a surreal dream of sorts. The overwhelming bright lights of success surround her in a bizarre euphoria. Diane is herself someone consumed by the concept of classic Hollywood, of the Hollywood dream, so it makes sense that when we actually begin Diane's dream, the film seems more grounded. Life is often hectic and complex in a way movies, or in this case dreams, never are. And with that, we should talk about the actual content of Diane's dream as wish fulfillment. In her dream, Diane makes many things reality. She makes herself a successful movie star. She makes her lover Camilla into a helpless woman who unites with Diane against the oppressive Hollywood system. She makes the wider Hollywood system into a massive, borderline supernatural conspiracy. And she makes the director who Camilla abandoned her for into someone who never gets the girl, whether it be in real life or in the films he makes. Diane's dream is not so naive for her to think that the Hollywood system is perfect. She most likely knew that as she pushed deeper, she would find some sort of buried evil. We've all heard the stories. Yet, she still hopes to see the problem in understandable terms, as a bunch of unnamed suits pulling the strings of many creative and well-intentioned people. However, Diane's experience has shown her that is not the case. She comes to understand a much more complex web of sexual abuse and greed which permeates every single level of Hollywood, even touching her own life in a profound way. The nature of Diane's dream as wish fulfillment is further understood when analyzing the Hollywood conspiracy presented here. We are met with elites who are somehow both clumsy and supernaturally powerful in nature. On the one hand, we have the figure of the cowboy, a near magical force of Hollywood authority, and on the other, we have an ineffective hitman, a complete failure at his job. Each is vastly different, but both play a role in the Hollywood conspiracy at hand in Diane's dream. The truth of the fantasy is, as with many other things in Diane's dream, much more complicated. In reality, the hitman is not part of some bigger Hollywood conspiracy, and he seems to be pretty good at his job, given that we have evidence he murdered Diane's ex-girlfriend at the instructions of Diane herself. It's likely that Diane made him clumsy in working for the Hollywood elite to both divert her role in his hiring and reassure her fears over the hit actually happening. The shady, suited men of the film don't exist. In reality, it's characters like Adam and Camilla who represent Hollywood abuse of power and sex. There's no secret organization, merely a net of messy corruption. Diane denies this reality because it reveals a dark truth, that she, a good-natured person, has been corrupted herself. This reality is eventually what ends Diane's life, as she's hounded by the old couple from the start of the film, people who push her to conform to the Hollywood ideal. She's been corrupted and therefore can never fulfill her dreams, whether they be of fame, happiness, or love. Diane's dream only ends when she acknowledges the truth of it all, when she goes to an illusion show and sees that, even though we might know of an illusion, we are still susceptible to falling for it. While Hollywood bore its dark face to Diane, she was still foolish enough to believe her troubles might be resolved, and that her love with Camilla might blossom, and that she might reach the top of Hollywood by hard work alone. When this is subconsciously presented to her, Diane is reminded, rather painfully, of her true life, one of corruption, pain, and failure. The illusion show also applies to the dream itself. Diane is aware she's dreaming, aware that this world cannot be real on some deeper level, yet she chooses to dream on anyway, to embrace the illusion she's made for herself because it's the more beautiful and rewarding route. This concept also bleeds into the film's conclusion, where Diane takes her life and chooses to embrace the illusion and dream forever. I'll draw a parallel here with the man at the diner. If you've seen the movie, you probably understand what I'm getting at, and if not, we're getting there, I promise. Diane knows the truth, that embracing her illusion is false and will likely lead to pain, yet she does it anyway. She goes to the back of the diner and confronts what lies there willingly, even knowing the truth of it. In this way, Diane's end represents a full embrace of the illusion. Diane chooses to continue dreaming, to never check behind the diner, and to continue to sit there with no resolution for all of time. And this is subtly a moment of rebellion from the Hollywood system. At the end of her initial dream, the cowboy wakes Diane, representative of Hollywood seeking to break Diane's fantasy and lead her to become another cog in the system. Remember that the cowboy figure is an embodiment of Hollywood corruption and conspiracy. And let's talk about the cowboy in some more detail. While he appears to be a mere construct of Diane's mind, the fact that seeing him twice means good and seeing him 3 times means bad seems to hold real weight in the film.
Now you will see me one more time if you do good. You'll see me 2 more times if you do bad.
The cowboy first reappears at the conclusion of Diane's dream, and this is rather fitting since Diane waking up and reassimilating into the Hollywood system, continuing her role as a pawn inside of something larger, is desirable for Hollywood at large. Diane has of course disrupted the system in her murdering of Camilla, but it doesn't seem like it's too late for her to go back to the oppressive Hollywood machine. However, Diane's flashbacks bring another appearance of the cowboy, specifically right after she's reminded of the pain caused to her by Camilla. We might read this as the exact moment Diane chooses to return to her fantasy, pulling away from true Hollywood and ending her life, effectively bucking against the system for one final time. So the cowboy reappears, for Diane has sealed her own fate, whether she knows it or not. The whisper of silencio at the film's end suggests these dark truths about Hollywood need to be silenced. This woman who sits above the show of it all tells us that the things spoken about must not be repeated. She speaks both to Diane, who has conformed, choosing to continue dreaming as opposed to waking up, and to the actual audience. After all, Lynch has told us through the film of the darkness embodied in Hollywood, yet we know that guise of secrecy must still be maintained. On a very meta level, we watch this film about the corruption of Hollywood, and while some of us might discuss the contents of it, many of us will never question Hollywood itself. Lynch is the magician, telling us how the illusion works, but we continue to watch nonetheless. Possibly the most important scene in the whole film is what seems to be its most irrelevant, a conversation between 2 men in a diner within Diane's dream. In the scene, one man tells another that they are meeting because of a dangerous set of premonitions he's had, where he finds something evil and sick lurking behind the seemingly harmless exterior of the diner. Despite anticipating this evil and knowing it's there, the confrontation becomes inevitable, and the 2 men head to the back, thus seeing the evil, revealing the entire scene to be a dream and destroying the illusion. Confrontation with that hidden darkness destroys the facade. On the one hand, we might see this as a wider metaphor for Diane's dream. Despite internally knowing that the dream will result in something dark, a confrontation with her guilt and pain, Diane presses on in trying to navigate her dream. She wants to help Camilla and to find some kind of resolution to the mystery surrounding the pair, even though she knows deep down that behind the exterior dream she's built for herself, there's a dark truth lurking, waiting to destroy it all.
There was an accident. You wouldn't tell me anything else, but that was your accident, Rita. I just know it was.
On the other hand, we might see the diner scene as Diane pushing beyond the facade of Hollywood to see the darkness behind it all. One of sexual manipulation and doing it for the money, where the talented don't find success, and lies line the sidewalk of dreams. And the implication is that Diane, before even coming to Hollywood, knew deep down that this is what would happen, that if she pushed far enough, she would find a dark truth that would ultimately kill her dream. Finally, we might see this as representative of Diane's actions relating to Camilla. Even though Diane knows deep down that getting Camilla killed and pushing herself on a path of anguish will result in her ultimate death, Diane tells herself it's the right course of action and gets herself killed as a result. So we have 3 instances of this dream in some form. Diane walking into reality and killing her dream self despite knowing deep down that she is in fact within a dream. Diane pushing into the truth of Hollywood and killing her naive self despite subconsciously knowing that Hollywood is a twisted and evil place. And finally, Diane doing what she thinks is right despite knowing deep down that she won't be able to handle the consequences and ultimately killing her real self as a result. This might be the reason why the man speaks of 3 dreams, 2 he's already had that have only metaphorically killed him, and then the one we see, a final dream that it seems he does not wake up from. Fittingly, the dark character which hides behind the diner possesses a blue box that holds a profound darkness within it. The exterior represents secrecy, with blue being used as a theme for secrets and hidden truth throughout the film, while the interior represents guilt and darkness, an abyss which gazes back at our protagonist. Diane first opens this box when she arrives in Hollywood and sees the true nature of the system. Guilt and darkness follow soon after. She next opens the box in her dream, as guilt and darkness over what she's done wakes her up. Finally, Diane is confronted with the box at the film's end. A blue key given to her by the hitman, signifying a job completed, unlocks it all. Guilt over her murdering of Camilla. Guilt over her failure to live that picture-perfect Hollywood dream she sought. Her act of murder is representative of her slipping into that Hollywood corruption, and Diane is now confronted by a true manifestation of her guilt, one linked with the box in a prior scene. This old couple, representative of expectations, torments Diane, pushing her to take her own life and thus refute confrontation with darkness. She phases the monster behind the diner out into a cloud of blue secrecy, thus returning to her fantasy and death, the eternal sleep. So obviously, Camilla is one of the most important and central figures in the entire film, and because of that, I think we should examine her role here, specifically how she relates to Diane. So obviously, the two are lovers, both in Diane's dream and in reality. We might pick up on the necessity of what their love means to Diane best in her dream. We contrast the sexual predation of the older actor during the audition scene, both acted and implied, with the sexual liberation and happiness which Diane derives from Camilla. Camilla is in many ways what Diane wants to be, a beautiful, successful star. Diane sees herself reflected through Camilla, and for a large portion of the film, we are led to believe that Camilla's name in the dream is Diane. As a result of Diane's infatuation with Camilla, their love in the dream is not awkward and uncomfortable, rather it is sweet and innocent. When the two act out Diane's audition scene themselves, one all about a powerful figure manipulating a young woman to his will, it's comical. In Diane's dream, Camilla being a manipulative partner is nothing more than a joke. And that desire to be Camilla permeates Diane's dream at every turn. Unlike reality, in the dream, Camilla is the lost and confused one, hurt by Hollywood and the darkness within it, while Diane is on her way to the top, unburdened by the darkness of Hollywood, and helping the helpless Camilla. Diane seems to split herself into 2 figures in her dream, Betty and Rita, represented or cast as Diane and Camilla respectively. Betty is the ideal, the successful actress, yet also the naive character Diane has truly been as she slotted herself into the Hollywood system. Rita is of course Camilla, beautiful in ways Diane wants to be, yet she's also representative of Diane's wounded side. I'll also note that Camilla is basically the embodiment of the born sexy yesterday archetype in this portion of the film. It's what Diane wishes she could be, dependent and unquestioning in her love for Diane, and in constant need of Diane's wisdom and guidance. Diane's dream begins proper with Camilla, Rita in this case, ascending Mulholland Drive and almost being killed there for some unknown reason. The scene where Camilla rides up Mulholland Drive is meant to represent the journey to the top, and her accident represents a diversion from that path, one which leaves her shaken and her innocence lost, yet her destination in Hollywood is still reached, even if it's not necessarily the top. Obviously, we might read this as a suggestion of sexual exploitation in exchange for marginal success, what happened to Diane through Camilla herself. We know that, in reality, Diane occupies a role as a moderate success, just brought along by Camilla, who Diane is sleeping with unbeknownst to Camilla's boyfriend, director Adam Kesher. Additionally, notice how the accident sees Camilla almost killed by the Hollywood elite before a joyride on the road towards success saves her life. We might read this as indicative of Diane's journey on an even deeper level. Her dream of Hollywood success was nearly killed before Camilla's joyride of sex and opportunity revived it. I'll also note the way in which Camilla relates to old Hollywood here. So, in Diane's dream, Diane is surrounded by these golden age actresses who warn her against Camilla, saying she's dangerous and spells trouble. Camilla will ultimately be the end of Diane's dream, so we might want to trust these older women, and it appears as though Camilla represents the very concept of Hollywood corruption in a way. The older actresses warn against Camilla, telling Diane she'll bring nothing but trouble, an end to the fantasy, something they had to experience themselves. In reality, Coco, one of these golden age actresses, does seem to reflect this truth, sympathetically patting Diane on the hand after Diane hints towards her abuse. Of course, it's a nothing gesture, far from the real guidance Coco tries to provide for Diane in her dream. Interestingly, Camilla takes on the name of a classic Hollywood star in Diane's dream, Rita Hayworth, suggesting that in Camilla, Diane saw a piece of classic Hollywood. She saw movie-type romantic love and glamorous success. However, it was all a lie. Camilla's success and love were both built on an act. The former, the act of love she projects onto Adam Kesher so she can get ahead herself, and the latter, the act of love and support she presses upon Diane for her own gain. Rita Hayworth also seems to resemble Camilla in her personal life, marrying various directors in moves that many have claimed were to advance her career. This provides us with yet another example of these modern problems extending into old Hollywood. Diane is often seen as wanting to reject Camilla, but she's brought back with the prospect of love and success, of that fulfillment she cannot reach on her own. In Diane's dream, the Hollywood conspiracy is real. There are shadowy figures pulling the strings behind it all. In the real world, however, it's not often the case. There are not always shadowy figures telling talented directors who they can and can't put in their films. More often than not, it's directors in it for satisfaction, prioritizing those they can manipulate for sex in their movies. We might also like the belief that people victimized by this system are wholly free of blame, that they are uncomplicit and threatened by those in power due to their position. And this is many times the case. Yet Camilla embodies the idea of the victim abuser perfectly. She is both manipulated by the system and a manipulator of Diane. Thus, when Diane is fulfilling a successful role in her dream, she's completely committed to Camilla. She refuses to act on any implied romantic interest from Adam Kesher, dedicating herself entirely to Camilla, something that Diane wishes Camilla would have done for her in the real world. Diane's life in Hollywood is largely defined by pain, manipulation, and corruption at the hands of a morally dubious system of success. Dreams are the only place where Diane finds true empowerment, and therefore it's fitting that Diane's real life becomes a type of dream, a coping mechanism derived from all her pain, and an expression of the dream world pulling upon Diane. After waking, Diane is hounded by hallucinations. Her life becomes a jumbled mess of memory and symbolism interwoven with real events that neatly inform the film's plot. Diane feels woefully out of place through it all, engaging in stilted and awkward interactions while occupying a passive, trance-like state when she's around others. This is of course compounded by the fact that even the real scenes in Mulholland Drive are still that of a film. It lends this passive, predetermined feeling to the movie's conclusion. Only Naomi Watts' amazing performance can really pull us away from this feeling that we are hurtling towards an inescapable end here. We effectively see that Diane doesn't see her choice as one between life and death. She sees it merely as a decision between what movie or dream to exist within. On the one hand, she can be a minor character suffering endlessly in a dark, devastating film. On the other, she can be an aspiring actor, solving mysteries, falling in love, and living out her dreams as the main character in her mind. Because of that, it's really no wonder Diane chooses to dream on permanently. The ending of Mulholland Drive provides a strange kind of happiness for Diane. She returns to her fantasy world for all eternity, never confronting that monster behind the diner and choosing to extend her dream forever through death. The shadowy, scary figure is lost behind a wall of blue curtains, and everything fades away, never to be spoken of again. Lynch has described the film as occurring in 3 distinct parts. Part 1. She found herself in the perfect mystery. We might read this as the dream portion of the film. Diane traps herself in an ideal world of movie-like intrigue and romanticism. Part 2, a sad illusion. This is the segment of the film where we see reality. Lynch plays on the concept of dreams with this phrase, declaring reality itself to be the true dream for Diane. After all, the ending cements Diane's fantasy as her permanent reality. Part 3, love. Diane's love for Camilla leads her to re-embrace the fantasy, to return to her place of comfort in the world she desires, and reunite with the woman she loves. So, as I've previously mentioned, Mulholland Drive is a film centered around fantasy and identity. Diane, as a character, seems destined to return to fantasy no matter what. Diane has developed a fantasy of Hollywood and of her own identity as a noble, kind person fighting off the evils of the system. However, through her dream, Diane slowly begins to understand her reality, wherein her Hollywood dream was violated, her fantasy of love perverted, and her own personal identity made into one of evil. Diane's ultimate fate is a fascinating one. In a way, she is rebuking the system, rejecting Hollywood and choosing to take her own path, but at the same time, she makes no meaningful change. She's been made aware of the illusions surrounding her whole life, yet also the potential for one to embrace their own illusion and the beauty which comes with that choice. Thus, she, someone who only ever found solace in fantasy, makes the decision to return to her dream at the film's end. Diane chooses to embrace a silence of blissful ignorance rather than one of compliance, but it's a silence nonetheless. So Diane exercises some agency at the end of the film, breaking away from the disease of Hollywood in her own way, but the film's ending definitely isn't empowering. It's a tragedy. Diane chooses to completely abandon her life in pursuit of a fantasy, a choice that ultimately ends in death. And the opposite is just as scary. Walking blindly to confront evil we've always known to be there can leave us helpless and horrified. In extreme cases, it can leave us dead. No matter how much we discover about the Hollywood system and its internal corruption, I think a part within all of us will continue to glamorize the institution. For many, it's become synonymous with extravagance and positivity, a near mythical path to the top. But the truth is much darker than many will ever admit. That road to success and fame is dark. It is winding and deadly, and despite our best efforts, once we are set on it, locked into its inescapable grip, there is no way to get off. Mulholland Drive marks the path to success. Many have gone up it, many have been cast off, but for everyone that has stepped foot upon that road, for everyone it has shown its true face to, there is an understood truth. Mulholland Drive is a monster, an ominous figure waiting not for some new talent to walk through the door, but for some unexpected artist to become its next victim. And with that, I am done. I really hope you guys enjoyed this one. I put so much effort into this, and I'm really proud of what I presented here. I hope to keep the videos coming consistently from now on. This is a script that I had written a really long time ago, and I'm happy to get it out, but I have new ones that I've recently written that I'm writing right now that I can't wait to get to you guys. So I hope that you'll stick around, subscribe, like, share, whatever to get the channel blossoming. I would love to have more of an audience to just interact with my content. But yeah, until next time, I have been Ellie. You have been wonderful. Goodbye, loves. Mwah, mwah, mwah.